When we were young, 2024 all album plays. They are doing it and we will be there. 57 records in total, and the Emo Social Club is listening to every one of them and giving you our thoughts on those records.
We have a lot of thoughts and opinions.
On this episode, we are talking about Hawthorne Heights, The Silence in Black and White. Lizzie, as a gigantic fan of Hawthorne Heights, tell us a little bit about the band. Tell us about this record.
Of course. This is their debut album. And this is actually the first album, obviously it's debuted, that they put out after changing their name from A Day in the Life to Hawthorne Heights. This was released on June 1st, 2004 via Victory Records. Former record head Tony Brummel actually contacted the band after Hawthorne Heights' drummer reached out to them and said, hey, I know you rejected us twice, but this is what we've been doing since the last rejection letter. They did a showcase for Victory Records, and they got a label deal pretty shortly afterwards. Off of this album are singles Niki FM, Ohio is for Lovers, and Silver Bullet. This was Victory Records' highest selling debut on their label during that time, which I found insane because I always felt like Hawthorne Heights was never as big when I listened to them growing up.
No, they were. They were MTV, same as Fall Out Boy, same as My Chem. They were very big at that time.
Their first headline tour in 2005 was with number one fan, Spitalfield and the Black Maria. And this album was number 56 on the Billboard 200 when it came out, number one on the Heat Seekers album charts.
Yep.
And it was certified gold in 2005.
Which is like almost unheard of.
No, I know. I was reading this and I said, I had no idea that this album hit as much as it did during that time. That's so crazy.
For essentially like an independent label, like not a major label. Like it's crazy. We're going to get into our takes on this record. Lizzie's going to say a lot of positive things, but before she does that, make sure to subscribe to our channel and check the like button and the comments. I heard they need you. We are doing all the records, so you'll want to make sure to check out the playlist in our description so that you can look at the record that you love, the record that you've been waiting for us to do. It's in there or it's coming, and let us know what you think about that as well. We are doing all 57 records. Hopefully, we'd say the nicest things we can about the record you love and that you wanted us to say all the best things. And we did. Go check it out. And before you listen to it, just like it and say thank you for saying all the nice things in the comments below. That'll help get out the word about your favorite record that has been out for 20 years.
So here are my thoughts on Hawthorne Heights' The Silence in Black and White. Wow, I love Hawthorne Heights, just to start. Hawthorne Heights is one of my favorite bands. When I first listened to Hawthorne Heights, I first listened to Niki FM. That was because it was on Fuse. And I caught it and I said, oh my God, this is great. Because Skeletons was out during that time. I listened to Skeletons first, then If Only You Were Lonely, and then The Silence in Black and White. So I kind of went in like a very reverse order. When I got to The Silence in Black and White after hearing If Only You Were Lonely and Skeletons, which are more either heavier and or slowed down, like a little bit more poppy, I was a little bit more jarred. I didn't really latch onto it as much. Obviously, I latched on to the singles and Bluebird's Orange during that time, because those were kind of more in the same vein as If Only You Were Lonely for me. Being able to revisit this and listening back to it, I'm like, wow, this has those kind of like edgy, kind of like vampire vibe theme if you listen to some of the lyrics. And I think it's just so fun. A lot of people I know, they would say Hawthorne Heights is like this cringy band. With Silence in Black and White, they have this newer emo sound that was very similar to Silverstein and other bands during that time that were heavier. And now also me listening to those bands really more in depth for the first time ever, I can hear a lot of that in Hawthorne Heights. And then I can also hear the OG emo influences that they have, and then further understand how we kind of got from point A to point C, basically. This is why I really think that when people say Hawthorne Heights is an OG emo band, I firmly believe that they are, because they stand really firmly planted between both camps.
For the listener at home, and in case this goes to clips, I disagree. And please don't leave comments. It doesn't matter. You're so stupid. Continue.
Leave comments. He's a hater.
OG emo is not this. This is 2004, which is of like the bands like Fall Out Boys and the My Chems, but like all the Victory bands like Taking Back Sunday, Thursday, Silverstein, and all these bands. They were doing the stuff. They were getting it out there. They were doing the things. That is not OG emo, and they were still coming after a lot of other bands, and they were kind of riding a wave of a bunch of bands that had come out after a bunch of things that had already happened, like The Used, Story of the Year, etc.
I just think you're a hater who doesn't see all the
That is not an
different
argument.
portions
That
that
is not
are
an
coming
argument.
through.
That is not an argument.
It's a statement to begin with.
That is not an argument. I know you. Okay, there is someone right now. There's someone right now on TikTok who's like, I got to say something about this. You don't. It doesn't matter. No one cares.
You do.
No
You
one
do.
cares,
You
dude.
do.
No one cares.
I care.
If you agree with Lizzie, first of all, you're just going to like it and you're not going to say anything. If you disagree with Lizzie, just go home. Go home. Get out. You're done with work for the day. Go home. Clock out.
Clock
Doesn't
out at
matter.
the Hater Museum.
It doesn't. Yeah. At the Hater Factory.
The Hater Factory.
It's crazy that you work in a place that you were born.
They have a lot of different elements that I feel that they pull from a lot of different areas to make this new genre that came out in the early 2000s. And I think that's why they've been able to be long lasting, at least with this album and If Only You Were Lonely as well. And now they're putting out new music that is matured from their original sound, but it's still very much this, I'm still like sad, but I'm like older and I understand like this is a different type of sadness and I'm moving on with life, but it also sounds really close to Skeletons. And that's where I will leave that. We also saw this album recently on their acoustic tour. I think it was really interesting to see it done in that acoustic setting. It wasn't like full acoustic, but I think it gave a lot of the other songs that aren't singles a lot more deeper meaning. This is just such a peak pinnacle emo album. I feel if somebody said, what's emo? I would say, here's some Hawthorne Heights, here's some Fall Out Boy, here's Jimmy Eat World. Kind of like the spectrum of what is more mainstream, not necessarily on the radio, but something that could have been on the radio as well.
I do agree with you on that.
Here are my top 3 off of the Silence in Black and White by Hawthorne Heights. Well, I could put all of them on here. I didn't. But it was very hard. It was like picking your favorite. It was probably like picking your favorite child. I don't know how that is. So my first one is Dissolve and Decay. This has like this vampire story vibe to it, and I really like it. The way that the lyrics are also stacked with the instrumentals, it's something that I feel if you were alone in your room having like a moment, you would just like kind of scream along to it or yell along to it. That's very important to have in certain songs, especially for songs that have this type of sound in this genre. My second is Speeding Up the Octaves. I feel like this is kind of like an emo girl anthem. It is a little bit brighter compared to the other songs on the track. So it kind of lends a little bit more into that pop punk vibe, very, very slightly. But I think it makes it more approachable to somebody who's maybe newer to this sound. So it's a little bit more attainable. And then the transition, I really like this song. It's catchy, but it mixes it up with different instrumentation. I like the play on words that they do with it. It's just so fun, and I love it. And this was very hard to pick my favorites. I didn't want to pick, obviously, any of the singles. Silver Bullet, though, is also one of my faves. It was also one of the first ones I heard off of this album after Niki FM. I don't think I got to Ohio's until a little bit afterwards, honestly.
Here are my thoughts on Hawthorne Heights, The Silence in Black and White. I have never really been a huge Hawthorne Heights fan. This was a band that came out when I was already into, The Used, Story of the Year. And then Hawthorne Heights comes along and does what I can only describe as like My Chemical Romance at home. Like it was just like never, it always sounded to me like if you had to make an emo band, what would it sound like? And you would come out with Hawthorne Heights. You wouldn't come out with like something like My Chem, which is doing like weird, off the first record, doing like weird post-hardcore stuff and then doing more like poppy, emo, mall goth stuff on Three Cheers. That came out after this record came out. Fall Out Boys, Cortree came out after this record. So like a lot of the bands that like made really big waves in the mainstream were like The Used and Story of the Year and bands like that brought like those other bands into the mainstream after them. So Hawthorne Heights kind of got caught up in that wave and it was very hard to avoid them. You had to know what they were doing. So of course I heard Ohio is for Lovers as the single. Now this song is incredible. This song is very good. Friends Driving Me to Warped Tour 2005, My Chem, Fall Out Boy are headlining. It's like the big year. And Hawthorne Heights was also on that year. And my friends put on In Silence in Black and White in the car. And I was like, why does every song just sound like quiet verses and loud choruses over and over again until the record ends? And I was like, this sounds so boring. And so I never really revisited it. Never went back and said, I'm going to actually listen to it now. because I was like, this just isn't for me, right? Cut to like the past few years where it's like, hey, you can't shut up about it. And we like know people who have gone on tour with Hawthorne Heights. We've met Hawthorne Heights. It's like, okay, as per usual, if I like you, if I've met you and you're a really nice person, I want to like all the stuff that I never visited or I didn't like at the time when I was a kid and I was a little bit like, you know, hands in my pockets, like, well, I don't like that Hawthorne Heights band. I'm not even from Ohio.
I just could just imagine little baby Brian be like, oh, like them.
So upon this listen, I will amend my statement and I will no longer refer to Hawthorne Heights as We Have My Chemical Romance at Home. I will call them We Have AFI and Thursday at Home, because this record sounds a lot like a band that really likes AFI and Thursday. There's a lot of parts in it that are very like that post-hardcore sound, that mall goth emo sound that AFI did on Sing the Sorrow, which did come out before this. Thursday, obviously, way before this. I think that this was just kind of a culmination of a lot of like that sound, especially Victory Records sound, that just sort of was like, we're making what you would define emo as. I have come around on a lot of the songs. I've been pushing myself very hard to like as much Hawthorne Heights as I can. There are a lot of tracks on this I'm like, this is just okay at best. This just isn't for me. I don't think this is very good, but I don't think it's also the worst thing I've ever heard. Somewhere in like the 3 to 4 range on most of the songs, with some very good bright spots, you know, here and there on it. Mm-hmm. My biggest issue with this record is that the screaming parts are just so predictable. And most of the time they sound like punk gang vocals that are done as like, no, we won't do gang vocals. We'll do screams instead. But they're just so like the call and response, like throw your hand up at these like certain parts. And they happen so often that it's like, okay, yes, I know that you do that. Like, you're not really doing something interesting with screaming in the way that like the Used did and all these bands that like clearly you have influences from, or like they were bands that also listened to the same bands you did. And so you got to 2 different answers from listening to the same influences. It just always sounds so predictable. And so like, this is, yep, happening again. Here we are again. Please don't be too mad at me on this.
Wow.
That's the hardest critique I'm going to give.
Brian doesn't want me to throw him in the streets tonight.
No. I am still coming around on this. I'm still trying. I have listened to it a few times to this this review. I've listened to it a few times for this. We have friends in the band. We have friends who are friends with the band. Like, we gotta, I gotta do my due diligence. So JT, Matt, I'm doing my work.
He's getting his shit together.
Side note, I do think I like more songs off of If Only You Were Lonely.
That's fair.
So I do think that record is quite a bit better than this one from what I've, been listening to. While Ohio is for Lovers is their best song, one of the best emo songs from the early 2000s period. That is undeniable.
Yeah.
Like what we said with Red Jumpsuit, it's like, it doesn't matter if every other song on the record is not that good. You had 4 killer songs. You don't have to worry about it. Don't worry about it.
That Red Jumpsuit album was great. What do you mean?
My top 3 tracks from Hawthorne Heights, The Silence in Black and White. First one I'm going to pick is Life on Standby, the opener. I think, as we say, this sets up the record and what you're going to hear. I do think this one has very catchy lyrics, very catchy choruses. I think this is like an example of what Hawthorne Heights does. So you're like, I know that this is what Hawthorne Heights is going to do throughout the rest of it. I think this is maybe the best distillation of what that is, so that you are going to like it right away, right? Starts off the record, you're like, okay, I like this. I'm going to hear more of this, and I like it. I'm going to like it. It has some of the better melodies and the catchy parts on the record for me, as well as like it's using the heavy breakdowns and screaming better on that track than just having like what is sort of like end of the verse or end of the chorus. Like, here's some chugs and a yell about a word or something like that. Like repeating the end of the chorus words in quarter note screams over and over again. Not going to harp on it too much. Speeding up the octaves too. This is another one that I have heard from this record before. I don't have any major issues with it, obviously, so that's kind of why it's one of my favorites. I kind of had come into it more familiar with it, so I was like, oh, I do kind of like this. Like, I've heard it, and I don't remember myself hating this, so I must like it.
There you go.
I could not pick a third that wasn't a single, so I'm just going to say Niki FM and Ohio are obvious standouts on the record. They're both really good songs. Niki FM is one that I like really did not like when I first heard it, and the more I've heard it more recently, the more I'm like, this actually is a good song. I think it's like a really fun chorus. So yeah, I'm picking a single. My least favorite track from Hawthorne Heights, The Silence in Black and White, is The Transition. Did not care for the chorus. I did not like the way the chorus lines end, and now I can't even think about it because it was just so boring and meh. I think this is like a culmination song of a lot of the other meh parts from every other song. It's like, oh, you found a way to do all of them in one. We did just see them. They said this was the first song that they wrote together as a band, and it made this record because they went into the studio and they wrote the song, and they were like, this is the first song we wrote is Hawthorne Heights. It's on the record. So it does sound like this is kind of like experimenting, writing, trying things out. And it may not be perfect on this song. That doesn't mean they won't get to better songs later. So, no shade to that. It's your first one. Got to try something. Not my favorite. Think that it's kind of meh.
So are you. It's all right.
Yeah, Mom can pick me up. Yeah. This is also the one where I feel like the vocals are just the most rough of all the songs. There's not a lot of melody for the chorus, which is what I was like not a fan of the chorus for. Just like kind of like one note, literally one note throughout the whole chorus. And I'm like, I like some of the ones where they have more melody to it, or there's like more of a play of the singing and screaming. And on this one, there just wasn't a lot of that. There's a lot of lines, and this is the AFI part of it. There's a lot of lines in this record where he's like singing something. And he goes, and I'm like, that is just Davey Havok, but you do it all the time. Once in a while, it's fine, but it gets too predictable if you do it like all the time. And I don't know if people are going to notice that, but now they might. Now you're going to hear it all the time.
What song is a coward?
All of them. Literally all of them. Dude, we're going to listen to this record after this. I'm going to be like, and there's one, and there's two, and there's three. And we'll be for the second song by number 40. It's a lot of them. I heard a lot of the same vocal sounds. I heard a lot of the same, like, just stuff throughout most of the songs, which is why I'm like, I think that they did better. I think when Ohio and Niki took off quite a bit, that they did If Only You Were Lonely, taking more of the ideas they had on those songs and other things that were happening in the genre and sort of pushing farther on those things, which is why I think like Saying Sorry is a really good song, because it's like a catchy pop punk but emo edged version. And it's like you clearly learn from what you made on this to then be able to make If Only You Were Lonely. Pens and Needles, is that another one?
Yes.
Yeah, like that song rips because it's like you're taking all the stuff you learned from all of this and making better songs off that. So like to me, it just feels like there's a lot of learning being done here. Like we'd say with a lot of like debut records. And then by the second record, you're like, hey, everything that like was really good about that record, we're going to do that twice as hard and try new shit. And I think that, like, to me is why I like some of the later songs that, like, the later singles that they put out off that record versus this one. This one just had very one note, very repetitive, very predictable stuff all throughout it. Those are our thoughts. There are other thoughts out there. The internet has some thoughts. I went to Amazon. Lizzie went to Critics. And we found some reviews of Hawthorne Heights, The Silence in Black and White from other people. So you don't listen to me. Don't listen to Lizzie. We're on opposite sides here. But maybe there's some people on the internet who are in the middle or joining us on our sides. This one is from Corey S. Brantner, 5-star review from 2004. The title is One Part Atreyu, One Part Underoath, One Part Silverstein. From the first listen, I liked this. I've been really into Underoath lately. They compare to them. I thought the music and vocals were above average.
Is that it?
That is it.
Oh.
So, number one, I don't think they sound like Underoath at all. Number two, Atreyu.
The vampire themes, but 10 times better.
One part Atreyu.
10 times better.
Maybe you need to listen to Atreyu for that one part again.
I don't need to do it again, actually. That was one of the worst things I've ever heard in my goddamn life.
This is a review, not by me, but by Brian. 1 star from 2005. Ugh. To show example of Hawthorne Heights' main audience, I'll post a 5-star review given on the site for the CD. So to explain this is somebody who is using a 5-star review from Amazon to say why his review is 1 star. This is one of the best CDs I have in my collection, and I have a ton, all the way from Green Day to Good Charlotte, and Hawthorne is awesome. I love the song Niki FM, and anyone who insults Hawthorne Heights doesn't know anything about good music, so yeah, Hawthorne is awesome. Everyone should own the CD. Yeah. So basically, for the hardcore punk skater girl with a collection all the way from GC to Green Day, since pop punk to even worse pop punk is such a broad variety of musical taste, is the perfect CD to proudly tote around. The screaming on this sounds like the screamer might barf any second after his lines are over. The cliche emo lyrics, so cut my wrists and black my eyes, are hard to even take seriously. They are that overdone. Their self-mutilation may have been inflicted after hearing their own voices on CD, perhaps? Yes, I am being brutal. But this is an embarrassing attempt of a hardcore, screamo, emo, punk, poser goth, or at least I wanna be, CD. 92 people found that helpful.
Oh my God. Okay, so now here are some critic reviews. The first one is from Yahoo Music by Rob O'Connor, February 4th, 2005. 3 guitarists, and this isn't either Lynyrd Skynyrd or Black Oak, Arkansas. I don't know who the second band is. Used to be only Southern rock bands had this many guitar players within their ranks, but times change and this post-hardcore screamo-influenced band of Dayton, Ohio punks aren't afraid of adding a little riffage to their attack arsenal. Through the tunes, Torque with Punk's energy, Casey Calvert and Matt Rydenor encast melancholic spells throughout, only broken by well-placed screams. Niki FM tries to be a ballad, and that's with an exclamation point, and harmonies that sound far more optimistic than the loss, heartbreak, and identity theft that seems to await them at every chord change. So this next one is brutal, but I felt I had to include it because I've never seen a rating this low that we have covered here. So this is by Brian Schultz from Punk News, June 11th, 2004. Now, Brian, what do you think this was rated?
Like half a star.
Oh, you are correct.
Yeah.
A scene from this past year's spelling bee. Your ward is Hawthorne Heights. Hawthorne Heights. Horrible.
Okay.
Hawthorne Heights.
I cannot allow terrible writers to continue to have careers.
That's correct. We also would have accepted Predictable and Cliché. Now, see the cheesiness, likely derivative of an overall lame quality of that insult. It's the same result of effort the band put into their victory debut, The Silence in Black and White. At least they titled it appropriately. The former suggests a viable replacement for listening to the disc, and the latter reflects just how colorless the album is. To be fair, though, the cover, again appropriately, gives off more of a classic Game Boy-esque puke green. The band might be an accomplished quintet of mediocrity in the field of whiny, poppy, mid-tempo post-hardcore if they didn't have to throw in spare change screams, which are as forced as they come. They could probably come off like a second-rate Spitalfield at least, but with their cutesy little growls end up coming off like a third-rate Silverstein. Both bands, coincidentally, mates on their label. Hey guys, is it bad to be friends with your label mates?
No, but that's what I was thinking too, is like, this sounds like Victory Records. That is a sound that they were doing. And I'm like, I don't think Silverstein sounds like Victory Records. I don't think Spitalfield sounds like Victory Records. I don't think Thursday, I don't think Taking Back Sunday sound like Victory Records. But Hawthorne Heights sounds like Victory Records because they sound like all of those bands doing it in a way that like you just kind of are taking from all these bands doing that music. So it does sound like Victory Records.
They were innovators.
I'm just saying I agree with this man, even though he's a terrible writer.
Without even referencing the pop screamo style, the band suffers in how much they water down the tempo. It's not even summer, but they've already broken out the sprinklers. Lyrics? You need to ask? How about winners like, please don't use my letters to start your fires? She cried all night until the salt from her tears rusted shut her eyes. That's relatable. The fuck?
No, that's not relatable. That's crazy. What the fuck?
I just feel like you've never cried that hard before. And so cut my wrists and black my eyes so I could fall asleep tonight or die because you kill me. Time signature changes, random jazz interludes with a brass sectional grindcore drums. I just wish they did something to differentiate themselves. And then this is in all caps. And no, a piano doesn't count. See Blue Burns Orange for a minimal amount of key pushing. They offer nothing new musically or otherwise. This isn't necessarily I'd rather get my prostate checked bad. But well, then again, at least I can avoid cancer. Be back in a couple hours. I don't know what any of that meant. I get what the vibe they were going, but this was not worded well at all.
Don't pursue your dreams. Let your dreams stay dreams. Go get a job at a factory like a man.
Live in reality, as Brian would say.
Take care of your fucking kids. Live in the reality.
Take care of your dog.
That's what we thought. That's what the internet thought. But here's the last thing we have to think. Should you see Hawthorne Heights, The Silence in Black and White at When We Were Young Fest 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. In general, too, they're so fun to see live. Like, they're just a good band to see live, and then you can kind of scream and cry to it. I think that's great.
We are going to the Hawthorne Heights 20 Years of Tears tour.
Yeah.
Where they're playing this album in full. So we're going to see it before the fest. We just saw them play it acoustically on that acoustic tour. They're doing 20 years of it this year. They're making it their thing. So we are going to see it at some point. If I don't see it at the fest, that's fine. I'm seeing it somewhere else. So I will be seeing it. I can say whatever I want about this record, but I mean, it was a big thing for them. There's a lot of people who love it. And so if you're not seeing them on that tour, if you didn't see the acoustic tour, if you haven't seen them do it before, I would recommend seeing it at the festival just to see it and have it in your pocket that you've seen it. Tell all your friends that you saw that once upon a time.
It's a good album. It's a good album. I personally really like it. I'm obviously very biased, but they do put on a really fantastic show. So if you really just want to see a very fun and engaged performance of people who actually really enjoy what they do and play, and be surrounded by people usually who also really enjoy what they do and play, I think you'll have a really good time.
So that's what we think. That's where we'll be at When We Were Young. Where will you be? Did you like this record? Are you a fan? Are we right? Am I wrong? Is Lizzie wrong? Who's wrong? Someone's wrong. Let us know in the comments. Subscribe while you're down there. And check out the playlist with all the other records that we reviewed. You can find it right there in the description. But until When We Were Young, until Hawthorne Heights, until the Silence in Black and White, we will see you there.